Hi, my name is Erin MacDonald, and I'm stage manager at the Ottawa Fringe Festival this year. The show I'm with is called The Fight, and it is a post-apocalyptic dystopian fight to the death, all kinds of crazy sword fighting antics. It's wonderful.
Hi, my name is Cowie, and I'm a stage manager also at the Ottawa Fringe Festival. And the show that I'm working on is BBSC, which is the abbreviation of the Bureau of Batshit Crazy, which is a crazy tale and adventure of finding a missing cat with the name Potato. It goes through several universes, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. And yeah, so that's.
And what are some of the challenges of your particular shows here? Actually, let's back up for a second. Just for people who aren't as familiar, briefly, what is the job of a stage manager?
It really depends on the show, and I feel like stage managing for a Fringe show is a really different kind of experience. In the last few years doing Fringe, I found that often in small independent companies, a lot of the jobs that are usually taken on by the stage manager go to other members of the company, or the actors collaborate and help out with those things as well. So yeah, it is a very different thing, I think, to do it for a Fringe show.
Yeah, because you're kind of, in terms of like rehearsal period or like prom book or however, it works completely differently because you never know what venue you're going to get or what limitations that venue has, and you're trying to do something that is usually in a large scale, in a small scale, in a short period of time. Like our setup time is only like, what, 10 minutes?
15 in theory if the other show gets out on time.
Exactly,
yeah.
Or if your tech's on time.
Yes.
So anyways, yeah, so there's a lot of challenges with trying to be able to put in this hour-long show with the limitations of time. Also, like, I find like it is a huge collaboration, and you kind of have to think of things that you wouldn't normally have to think about in a large-scale production. And I always find that when I stage manage for Fringe, I almost become a production stage manager, and it just kind of just happens because you're kind of having to oversee everything.
Yeah. There's like that too, and I feel like almost on the other hand, sometimes it can fall into that realm, but sometimes it falls also into the opposite realm, where if it was, say, an actor that wrote a show for themselves, and so they are the contact that the Fringe has, it's harder, I find, for a stage manager to stay informed as to what's going on, particularly with like the limitations of the space. Sometimes you don't always know until you get in there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I guess as a stage manager, you want to know all of the information, whether it's relevant or not.
Yeah.
You want to know
and we're used to getting to know that.
I know. We're like, yes, this is my space. And then you can do evil things.
Yeah.
Well, good things, show things.
Yes.
But I know, like, because I have a technical background, like, I wanted to find out what kind of lighting board we had and what kind of sound setup, because I'm a bit nerdy.
So what are some of the specific challenges for your particular shows this year?
Okay, in the case of this particular show, it was written by Nick Amott, and I would say the biggest challenge is that we didn't get a script until really, really late in the game, because Nick was involved with The Taming of the Shrew, so he was in a show all the way through April, and he also works and didn't really have time to like focus and nail out the script. We also had, the other really big challenge is we found out not like too long before the festival that the other actor, Brennan, had accidentally double booked himself for one of our performances. So on our second show, Nick was like, okay, I'll just do it alone that night. So for a show that normally has 3 actors, he performed it alone one night. And that was a terrifying challenge for me as a stage manager, because he just kind of came in the day of and was like, 15 minutes before the show, and was like, this is what we're gonna do. Here's my laptop and some sound cues. Off you go, kind of thing. So that was very exciting, and it worked out really well, but it was certainly a challenge to have to almost create 2 shows.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah. I don't think anyone that was there that night can deny that they enjoyed themselves.
Yeah.
It was lots of fun.
Well, it's funny, like when you're operating a show like that, where you're kind of like, And like, but yet the audience doesn't really know what's going on, and you're just kind of like, oh god, and you're just super over aware of everything that's going on. You're like, okay, that's incredible though, to like just
because I'd never like heard any of this before. I don't even know if he had listened to this sound cue thing all the way through, but
he saw the title and it was good to go.
Yeah.
So what about the Bureau of Batshit Crazy?
Well, it's a very interesting group of people that I've really enjoyed working with, and I think the challenge is because I haven't really worked on a new work before, so we had like the script changes and stuff like that was a little bit like it wasn't like super hard to work with, but I'm just not used to getting like different editions of the script throughout the process. So it just made it very interesting because I had to adapt my prompt book to accommodate that. So it's like if 1 week I get like 3 different script changes, I have to completely kind of sort of change my layout of my prompt book. But it was also kind of a good experience because then I just learned to adapt. And then I was just like, well, then I'm just going to double-side my prompt book, and it's going to be blocking on one side and script on the other, and it's going to be good to go.
I've definitely learned from working on Fringe shows that I don't even make my book until the morning of our tech day, because I've gotten very used to working with, directors who are directing their own scripts, so they change things all the time. So that's what I've gotten in the habit of for Fringe, is doing my book like the day before opening.
Yeah, or even almost like because I found with BBSC is I kind of had 2 prompt books. I had my rough blocking, and then I had my actual prompt book because I didn't want to carry around like a 100-pound binder, because it's like in a booth that's really small, you can't do it. So I almost had like blocking binder and then actual binder, because again, like things are going to change, and then things are going to change after your tag, right? And then you're all like, oh good god, where did I put that?
I was really lucky on this particular show. Like, my prompt book is in a duotang for this because I just had the script, because most of the blocking in this show is fight choreography, and that's not something I had worked with before. So the first couple of rehearsals, I was sitting there with my notebook going like, I really don't know how to write this down in a way that you or I are going to know what I was talking about. So most of my blocking notes are actually film clips. So I have a whole bunch of film clips on my phone that I would then email to the guys so that they could review what we had worked on. So that was really different, was doing that, but it was nice to be able to like go, okay, this actually looks good on stage, and or this doesn't.
And with BBSC, we also had so many scenes, but I know it was for like the rehearsal process. But there's scene 1 and then like scene 1.1. Like they were like into point scenes, and then there's like the B scenes. So there's definitely a lot of tab usage in my prompt book. But once it gets to this point, the scenes kind of mesh together, so it's okay. But it was kind of for rehearsal purposes, at least I think. But it's actually like, again, it was a really good experience. I like when shows are so different and just kind of make you adapt.
Yeah.
Because if it makes you like learn, and you're like, and I think stage managers, like that kind of challenge, because we're interesting people.
Well, we like being able to adapt our own style, because you have like the standard stage management things that you learned in school.
This is perfect.
And then that's your like base to go off of for every other show. You're like, okay, these are all the things. Which ones do I need to use in this situation?
Well, and then like the classic like prompt book layout where you have 1 stage layout, but now I'm on to 2 stage layouts now. I'm like, 1 is just not enough. Maybe if you have someone that walks across a stage, that's fine. But like, it doesn't work that way. And plus, I sometimes work with directors, not on this show, but on other shows, who want to be so involved in like understanding how stage management works that I've started putting legends at the bottom of the blocking sheet for people's characters' names. Oh, it's intense. Like, but it's so good though, because you get more of the information and you just grow. I almost like do every prompt book like a Fringe prompt book now.
Yeah.
Because like it has to be ready to be read and used by other people, right?
Yeah.
That happens.
It did. It happened to me this Fringe.
Yes, I heard. How was that experience?
It was pretty crazy.
Heart attack in 5, 4.
Oh,
I was there.
Yeah, so I guess you saw it, but it was Wednesday, I guess, and I had gone to see NAR Moves at 3:30, and Catherine Dermott and I had been playing phone tag all day, and like after the show, she finally got me on the phone and was like, "Hey, Erin, what are you doing at 5?" And I was like, 20 minutes, nothing in particular. Could you call my show for me? So this is, I am guessing, the most technically heavy show at this year's festival. They had 187 cues in a 45-minute show, and I had 15 minutes notice. I was like, yes, I'm on it. I'm on my way to the venue right now.
And what was the show?
It was The Day We Grew Wings, which I had fortunately seen the previous weekend, so at least I kind of knew what was going to happen. But I walked into the space and opened up the book, and the first page was just this straight line of dots all the way down. And so I kind of skimmed the book and was like, okay, time to open the house. And called the show. And it was really crazy, but it happened, and I was very proud of myself for that, because that's kind of one of the bigger challenges I've had thus far in my very short career today.
I think calling someone else's show pretty much blind is like one of the most difficult things to do as a stage manager, and I've had to do it before. And it's because you're calling someone else's show. You're using someone else's prompt book. You're trying to understand their terminology, and you're like,
yeah. And props to Catherine, because her book was amazing. Like, I had very little trouble understanding it, and there were a couple moments where I was like, I have no idea what this means, but we're just gonna, I don't know, Alex, go. But she had an amazing prompt book, and she and I went to school together that we just finished, so we learned stage management the same way. So I was kind of like used to looking at that style of book, and it was great. So
it makes you realize, like, how like when like Lynn instills in your body that you should prepare your book as if someone else would have to call it, and someone who may not know theater, because that happens too. Edmonton Fringe, so it makes you really realize how clear your prompt book has to be.
Yeah.
And it's not until you're in one of those situations that you truly understand that.
Because I can look at my prompt book and in my
I
scribbles, and I know
totally
exactly
know
what
what
I
that
mean.
means.
But but somebody else would go, I don't know. So that's
yeah. It's a lesson
really
relearned,
important.
I suppose.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But so that was very exciting.
Yeah.
So what are some of the little glitches along the way that you guys had to deal with in your show runs? We're here at the end of Fringe, so runs are just about done now. So what are some of those glitches that you're allowed to talk about?
That I'm allowed to talk about. Okay, well, so our opening performance, we opened at 5 o'clock on Thursday. First time slot of the festival, or I guess it was 5:30, but the first time slot in that venue. And they're going through, and as I said, we didn't have a script until quite late in the game. So while we had like this beautiful set and wonderful costumes and like these gorgeous weapons, and the fight choreography is just amazing. Brennan's a very talented fight choreographer. Their lines were a little shaky. And in that first performance, they skipped an entire scene in the middle of the show, the longest scene. So that was 15 minutes of show. That just did not happen. So I was sitting there in the booth with MJ. We were on like LX 19 or something, and I was like, LX 28, go. And we jumped ahead, and I don't think it was particularly noticeable to the audience, but that was definitely kind of like, oh my god, what's going on? And then of course the second show was the one-man show. So by the time the third one came around, I was like twitchy stage manager, but the third performance went very, very well, and all of the ones since then were really awesome. So those were, I would say, during this run, the biggest glitches that we had. 15 minutes.
I guess for me, not that the show is super sound heavy, but it's one of those things because I'm not. I usually don't run sound, but I usually have had to with like the different shows that I'm on, and I guess it's like because we had so many like sound cue changes and edits and stuff like that. Like the Dropbox folder be crazy. Like it's there's a lot of cue businesses up in there. So like having to like reburn and just truly understand that like, yes, I have all of the cues in all the right order, and it's burnt. It's gonna be okay. So it's just like, I guess like the changes in sound cues that even happen like after, you know, we open and stuff like that, which just like, it's not so much, I guess, glitches, but just like, as a stage manager, you're like, yes, no, I'm right. Like, this is going to happen. Yes, this is right. This is the right cue, you know?
Yeah.
When you're, like, looking on the CD player and you're looking at the text and you keep going back to it just to make sure you're on the right, you know
And,
what
like,
I mean?
Yeah.
Where you, like, you turn, you're like, yes, this is the right cue I'm about to go in. It's going to be okay. So I reburnt my final CD, and for some reason there's no text on it. So it's in the right order, but there's no text. I don't trust it. So luckily, the CD that I had burnt before, I had put the extra sound cues that I didn't know where they went at the end of the CD, so it actually works out, so I'm just using it.
So you could go, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right. Yes, I'm going to go to 17. Okay, I'm going to go back to 6. I'm going to go...
A lot of our, like, all every single sound cue in our show is, like, interspersed with other sounds and things, but they're all voiceovers that the actors did, and I did a little cameo voiceover in the show, too. So it's all that, and it's a lot of, like... just to make it easier, so I'd have less scrolling around because they're really quick. A lot of it is like I play the sound cue and then pause it while they say a few words, and then it keeps going. And the play button on the sound console in SLB is a bit finicky.
Yeah.
So there were a couple moments where it would do that thing, or like I was like, is it really paused? Is it going to keep going while they're... Yeah, so there were a couple situations.
Did I press the cue button? Is that what happened? Why is that flashing red?
If you like, it's like if you tap it too hard, it presses twice, and then it's not playing, and yeah.
Yeah, I had that once where like I had pressed it, and then that thing was going, and I was like, and then it went. But yeah, it's a good sound setup. The only thing is like I find that I have to like sit back pretty far to actually see what the title is.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm like, all right, because there's not real like
there's not a lot of space up there.
There's not a lot of light.
It's yeah. I really actually I like that booth though. It's the first time I've worked in that space, and I like that booth because it is one of the few booths I've worked in where I can, if I want to, sit down and call the show and still see what's going on. Most of the booths that I have worked in, I have no choice but to call the show from standing because I can't see the stage.
That's true.
So I've gotten very used to calling shows from standing, but this was nice because they have the really tall stools in there, and I could sit down if I wanted to. Especially on whatever day it was that it was really, really god-awfully hot before they got a fan in there, and it was like a sauna, and I really thought I was going to faint up there. It was suffocating.
It's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Cool. Now, to broaden it out beyond just this Fringe, what would you recollect as one of your greatest moments as a stage manager? Something you've overcome, or...
That's a tough question. Okay, I don't know. I might have like 5 of these, but as they like come to me. But one that was just such a little thing is that I've kind of known that this is what I wanted to do since I was like 14, and my sister's after school drama class needed a stage manager, and I'd only ever acted before, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I did, and I was like, yep, this is what I'm doing. And so I've known for a really long time, and it was just in April, actually, during the run of the Laramie Project at Algonquin, and I was going around, giving my 5-minute call, or 5 minutes to the house, I think it was, and one of the first years was ushering for us, and as I walked by, and I was like, okay, I have 5 minutes to the house, she kind of like grabs my elbow and goes, Erin, you're so calm. Like, you're just in the zone and you're calm. And I'm like, really? I'm glad that's the energy that is coming on. I'm glad that I am projecting this calm energy onto all the people around me, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I don't know. It felt really good to hear that. That I was that I was doing my job well, and that people were feeling calm about how I was going about it.
I think for me, it was also a Fringe experience, because I one year, I think it was 2 years ago, I stage managed 2 shows for Black Sheep Theatre and Lonely Egg Productions, Wild Abandoned and the Last Goddamn Performance piece, which was interesting because I had to deal with equity on the one side because Nancy Kenny became equity while in rehearsal. So that was an interesting experience. I'm like, okay, equity, it's time for us to face to face. We're gonna do this. So it's one of those things where you kind of like taking your, like you kind of like step forward. You're like, okay, now this is a very different world, right? And so in creating like the prompt book that I knew was going to tour, I may have been a little over the top with knowing that the prompt book was going to tour and stuff like that. So I tried to like make it like really awesome. And I ended up making, for the first time, an electronic prompt book. So I had a hard copy of it, and then I had it in electronic form because I was very afraid that the company was going to lose the prompt book. And I was like, this will not happen on my show. Because I wasn't able to tour with them. So I actually sent the prompt books to each of their venues in electronic PDF form. And I got a call from Calgary, from the Edmonton Fringe, while I was in the booth for another show on intermission from Zach Council. And he's like, the techs just wanted to call you and say that you have the most immaculate prompt book that they've ever seen. And I was like, this is random. So I got to talk to two guys from Edmonton who really liked my prompt book. And I feel like that's probably the most random situation I've had. But it was really good because I was like, wow, okay. So it's not just like, so it's like, it makes you feel good. Like, you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And it's like, not just Ottawa thinks that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, because,
it's like, you know
because here you're working with like the same sort of people all the time, and they
like,
get used to your work.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, so I'm okay in Ottawa standards, but what am I out in the world, right? Out in the rest of Canada. So it's just like one of those, like, I was like, all right then, I like this. That's awesome. Yeah, it was also very random.
Excellent. So job's well done.
Yeah.
All right. So I usually close these things off with completely random questions, and your random question is: 10 years from now or whenever, what person from history would you get to babysit your future children, and why? If you could have anybody from history.
I feel like President Lincoln. Because I like top hats. I think they're pretty cool.
That's so cool.
And he was like a really good president, you know? Like, I think, yeah, Lincoln. I got a good feeling about him. I think we would be good friends.
I think that that I'm going to say F. Scott Fitzgerald because he knew how to party, and if I'm gonna actually maybe get to go out and have a date night, then the kids should get to have a little fun too.
That's true. They could hang out.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be cool.